Morning has come, arise and greet the day. Dance with joy and sing a song of gladness. The light of hope it shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home. A new day dawns, once more the gift is given. Wonder fills this moment shared together. The light of peace it shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home. Open our eyes to see that life abounds. Open hearts to welcome it among us. The light of love it shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home.
Good morning and welcome to Live Oak Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm Reverend Joanna. If this is your first time here, a special welcome going out to you. So glad you could join us today. And to everyone, today is the day of our annual flower communion. And so after this online service, you are invited to come up to our actual church, come around to the back, and we're going to have a wandering flower communion. If you can, bring some flowers. We're going to invite you to leave some flowers and also take some flowers. Flower communion is a tradition in Unitarian Universalist churches, and another tradition that we have is lighting a flaming chalice. And so if you have a chalice or a candle near, if you could draw it toward you as we all light our chalices together.
as we travel to Prague, Czechoslovakia, in Europe, the year 1923. There was a Unitarian church. Now, the building did not look at all like our church. In fact, it did not look like a church at all. It did not have a tall steeple reaching toward the sky like some churches do. It did not have massive doors carved of wood or windows of stained glass. It did not have a chalice, a piano, or flowers. The church had walls, a ceiling, a floor, a door, a few windows, and some hard wooden chairs. But thankfully, the church had people who came every Sunday, and they were the most important part of the church, because without people, any church is just a building, no matter how tall its steeple. The people of Prague had been through hard times. They had just recently been through 4 years of war. Many people in Prague had been divided about the war. Many had lost loved ones or had been hungry or scared, and even though the war had ended, many bad feelings still remained. The church also had a minister. His name was Norbert Chapek. Reverend Chapek had been the minister of this church for 2 years. Every Sunday he spoke to the people and they listened, sitting quietly on those hard wooden chairs. When he finished speaking, the people talked a little bit among themselves, and then they went home. And that was all. No music, no candles, no food. Now Reverend Chapek, he was a thinker, and he wondered sometimes if there might be something, perhaps just a little something more spiritual. He wrote some songs and the people sang them, and it helped, but something was still missing. The church went on as before. One spring morning near the end of May, as Reverend Chapek was out for a walk, he noticed the birds singing and the flowers blooming and felt the sunshine on his face. How beautiful the world is! And then an idea came to him. The next Sunday, he asked all the people of the church to bring a flower or a budding branch to church the next week. Each person was to bring one. "What kind?" they asked. "What color? What size?" "You choose," he said. "Each of you choose what you like." And so the next Sunday, which felt like the first day of summer, the people came with flowers of all different colors and sizes and kinds. There were yellow and white daisies and red roses, blue asters, dark-eyed pansies, grape hyacinth, pink and purple, orange and gold, all the colors of the rainbow and more. Children helped arrange them and bring them forward to the front of the church. Flowers filled all the vases, and beauty filled their hearts. The church wasn't so plain anymore. They had created beauty together. Reverend Chapek spoke to the people, and they listened, sitting quiet and still in those hard wooden chairs. "Those flowers are like us," he said, "different colors, different shapes, and different sizes, each needing different kinds of care, but each beautiful, important, and special in its own way." He said a blessing of the flowers, which called for everyone in the room to see one another as family, despite differences, and to let the spirit of love unite them and help them live more joyfully. He invited each person to take a flower home with them when they left, a different flower than what they had brought. And when the service ended that day, the people turned and talked a little bit more among themselves. And maybe there was some laughter, and then they each chose a flower from the vases before they left and took it home as a gift from their church family. And each year at the start of summer, they did this again.
Grow in my garden.
I envy the trees. The ones that seemingly died during the freeze dropped all of their leaves, leaving their branches bare, but now they're back. Lusty and lush, uttering joyous leaves of green like I've never seen before. I envy the trees. Wouldn't it have been great to take the kind of break so resolute that you didn't even have to look like you were alive? And all that to pull up your resources so that you could spring back to life again. I want that rebirth, and I want it for everyone else who needs it. Yes, the pandemic is still going on, and yet it is fading, and so many of us have been able to get our vaccinations, and I am taking it on faith. I just have to believe that that vaccination is going to be available for all of our children too. Summer is here, and I think we need to find our own ways to die to the life that we have been living. If you could call it living, existing, surviving, somehow we need to find a way, like the flowers and the trees, to go dormant, to gather up some energy so that we can then figure out how to spring up through the soil that has been holding us down. Like the flowers, we need to be able to spring up and remember what it was like to feel enthusiasm and to experience fun and joy, all those things that we used to love to do, and how over the past year we've just sort of gone numb. We need to be able to wake up again. There is something ancient and eternal in the relationship between humans and flowers. We're born, and oftentimes our parents are sent flowers to celebrate the fact that we are now here, we are now part of life. It isn't that long after that before a child is toddling, intent on making their way toward the mud to grab up a bunch of flowers in their grubby little hands, often pulling them up by the roots and then taking them over to a caregiver. It just seems that there is something wired in us to give flowers to someone. And we continue doing it throughout life. We give flowers to show romantic intentions or to give apologies. We send flowers for celebrations, for anniversaries, for birthdays. And at the end of our lives, people send flowers to show their sorrow and to show their gratitude that for a period of time we existed. I'm so glad that this faith that I love, Unitarian Universalism, that has sustained me through so much, including this past year, that we have flowers as one of our sacraments. And that tradition, it didn't start in the best of times. It started right before the Holocaust, as Norbert Čapek and his congregation, he wanted a way for them to celebrate life and to celebrate the community itself and all of the diversity they had. And so he created the flower ceremony. And we, like so many Unitarian Universalist congregations, the vast majority, I would say, we celebrate this sacrament every year. Every year except for last year. Last year at this time, there were still so many questions about how this deadly virus was transmitted that we didn't actually exchange flowers in any meaningful way. But here we are, a year later, and we have vaccines so that we can get past this pandemic. We, Unitarian Universalists, who lift up the power and the miracle of science, this is a time for us to celebrate and to be exultant about what it is that humans can do. In Chopek's ritual, the purpose was for us to remember that we are different from each other, and yet we take each other as we are. We don't require each other to be just the same as we are, and what a boring world it would be like if there were only one type of flower. We are different, and we have had different experiences of this pandemic year. But everyone has been not only affected, but in some way traumatized by this. For some people, this was a period of loneliness and emptiness and isolation. For others, it was a time where it felt so crowded, it felt like the walls were closing in and there was way too much to do. Even today, right now, we are still having different experiences. Some people are fully vaxxed and are beginning to go out and travel and engage with life again, go out and see friends even without masks. And for others, especially those with young children, the risk is still too high to do that. And so we haven't been having that same experience. And mentally, emotionally, we are in different places too. For some people, even if you have been fully vaxxed, this past year is not something where we can just turn on a dime. Those fears are still there. We are still cautious. And in point of fact, there is still information out there that is not entirely resolved. Part of being in a community means that we try and look at things, taking all of these different experiences, all of these different realities into account. And so, yes, we are moving towards being together again. What a wonderful day that is going to be, but we're also taking it slow. As an example, today after the service, we are having a outdoor wandering flower communion, and in solidarity with our children and others who have not been able to get vaccinated, we ask that you still wear your mask even though you'll be outside, again in solidarity with them, and that we social distance for this. Throughout the summer, we're hoping to have more opportunities to get together where we will gradually be moving away from where we've been and moving into what we hope will be a far more open normal. Our next step is going to be coming to some terms with what has happened and all of us doing some healing. We are all still carrying so many burdens. Of course we are, from the past year. This past year, it had its effect on us. Many of us are still struggling with memory issues or not being able to sleep well. We may feel still very numb, or we may find ourselves snappish and more irritable, quick to anger and slow to forgive. And I suspect that many of us are carrying some guilt and some shame. That would be completely human. This is one of the oddities about being human, and that is subconsciously, when we are given a choice between admitting to ourselves that something was completely out of our control or feeling guilt, we'd rather choose the guilt, because at least that way we feel like we could have done something different to have a different outcome. Recently, a dear friend came into town, and since we were both vaccinated, we met outdoors, and we're able to have some of those deep, rich conversations that you have with someone you've known for a long time, where you basically try to kind of replay the entire year for each other. At the end of our visit, he said, "I have to apologize. I should have reached out to you. I knew that this was a hard year for you, but I just," and his voice trailed off. And so I jumped in and I said, "But you didn't have the capacity." And he said, "Yes." And I said, "I know. Me too. I should have been reaching out to you, but I didn't have the capacity. Is that something that we can normalize, saying that just for this past year? I mean, it was, in point of fact, a gosh darn global pandemic. We are not being drama queens to call it that. That is exactly what it happened, and it changed life as we knew it. Can we start admitting two things? One, that all of us deserve to have more nurturing and care during this past year. And because this was happening to all of us, all at the same time, we lacked the capacity. And we didn't know what we were doing. This was the very first global pandemic for any of us to live through. I feel pretty confident that I've learned some things this past year, and that if I had to live through another life upending global pandemic, that I could do better. Gosh, I really hope that I won't have to. I've heard some people, give grace to each other and say something about like, you did the best that you could. I don't know that for myself, I don't know that I even want to say that. I mean, what does that even mean? I did the best that I could for a pandemic. Why do we have to give any ratings at all? Maybe this is one of those times where we can simply say that it happened and we made it through it. In the words of one of our members, Jonathan Norwood, well, that was a thing. We survived a global pandemic. And yes, there were things that we did not have the capacity for. Can we learn how to say that and say it where we're not asking the other person for absolution? We're simply saying it as a matter of reality. I lacked the capacity isn't some magic eraser that just wipes away the past year. And in our closest relationships, we probably are going to have some work to do to rebuild the closeness that we had if it has been hurt this past year. I don't know this, but what I suspect is that just like my friend and me, that there's going to be a lot of times when we say, I'm sorry, I lacked the capacity. And the other person is going to say, oh, I know, me too. How will you find ways to ritualize what this past year has meant in your life so that you can be open for what is new and what is to come? I remember this one time in my life when I'd gone through a difficult crisis, and when the crisis was over, I went to a place up in the mountains of New Mexico that was special to me, by the banks of the Pecos River. I've shared this sometimes before, and I went down to the river every morning and cried. And I just kept doing that until I no longer needed to. And when I look back at that time, I can see a clear delineation, and it happened there. I was creating a ritual even though I didn't know that was what I was doing, and it marked the end of the crisis times and gave me the space for the beginnings of new and better times. What is it that you're feeling you need right now? For me, I don't feel that I need to cry, but I definitely need something that will symbolize the change. And for me, water has always figured into these kind of things. I can completely relate to the way religions use water to mark change, whether it is the Jewish mikveh bath or the Christian baptism, the idea that you go under the water as one person, and when you emerge, you are ready to be changed. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be going to some other waters that are sacred to me this summer, waters where when I swim there, I can feel my ancestors all around me, ancestors that used to swim in those exact waters that we now call Barton Springs. And when I arise from those waters, know the circumstances of my life will not be dramatically different than they were 5 minutes before. We're going to be dealing with this pandemic for a while. But I am hopeful that something in me will have changed, that I will have found, even if it is very briefly, just for the length of time it takes to hold my breath, that I will have found a way to go dormant and then come back to life. Life goes on. And we go on, we and the trees and the flowers. The trees bud out again and are covered with leaves, and they can reach up to the sun at the top, and underneath they provide cool shade. And those fields that at one time were covered with snow and ice and then simply brown, dead grass, those are now covered once again with blossoms. The flowers bloom again as we can bloom again, and we can once again partake in the communion of being together and the sacrament of the flowers.
shake hands and say hello. All the colors, yes, the colors of people who know that their freedom is won. All the colors that bound for the whole world around and for everyone under the sun. De colores se visten los campos en la primavera. De colores son los pajarillos que vienen de afuera. De colores es el arco iris que vemos lucir. Y es por eso los grandes amores de muchos colores me gustan a mí. Y es por eso los grandes amores de muchos colores me gustan a mí. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
Thank you for being with us this morning. And a special thank you to everyone who helped put this service together, our producers and our musicians, and a thank you to you for bringing your presence to this online gathering. And now for everyone who lives in the Austin, Leander, Round Rock, Cedar Park, all of those different areas around here. Everyone who lives in this area, you are invited to come to Live Oak UU Church right now, where we're going to have our Wandering Flower Communion. If it's possible, bring some flowers of your own. We're going to have places where you can leave those for someone else to pick, and then we will have flowers for you to take home to remember this day and to remember this community. This summer will mean different things to different people. For some, there will be an opportunity for vacation. For others, it will mean work will continue as usual, but I hope that whatever your situation is, that you can still begin thinking of some way to carve out a little time so that you can find your own renewal. Go forward this week, remembering that you are lovable and loved, and you are not alone.
Soon the day will arise when we will be together, and no longer will we live in fear. And the children will smile without wondering whether on that day thunderclouds will appear. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Wait and see what a world there.
Leave time for the turning of the season. Leave time for the longing of the day. Time for the heart, time for the reason. Time for the quiet of the way. Come sit by my side and share a story, one of a love too deep to find, one of a sailor wending homeward, one of the echo of your mind. Leave time for the turning of the season. Leave time for the longing of the day. Time for the heart, time for the reason. Time for the quiet of the way. After the hurry comes the harbor. After the journey comes the rest. Trade rushing for the rushing of waters, through fields lined with furrows, banks and nests. Leave time for the turning of the season. Leave time for the longing of the day. Time for the heart, time for the reason. Time for the quiet of the way. May all your travels bring you comfort. May all your loving give you some. May all your learnings leave you open. May all your rambles lead you home. Leave time for the turning of the season. Leave time for the longing of the day. Time for the heart, time for the reason. Time for the quiet of the way. Time for the quiet